that I was able to create using the new format-corrected pitch engine. So that's one application for it, and you could take an entire track and pitch it up or down as much as you needed, and you will find that you will get quite good results. I should have mentioned this, by the way. In the menu, we have format-corrected pitch shift, which is the brand new algorithm. We have standard pitch shift, which is traditional transposition, which does not correct for formants. We also have solo vocal pitch shift, which is the algorithm that has been in previous versions of DP for at least a decade or two, but it's still available to you in case you ever need it, because different algorithms treat audio in different ways, and you never know. You may come across audio in which the old algorithm could work better than the new algorithm, hypothetically. And we also have no pitch shift, which is essentially pitch bypass. So if I switched to that and played back, I would get my original sound bites if I ever needed to bypass the changes I've made. So now I am going to go back to my track, and let's start doing some crazy stuff with it. I'm going to pull up my pencil tool by double tapping the P key, and I'm going to draw into my relative pitch curve, and let's just go nuts with it and see what this sounds like, just for grins. So, pretty wonky. We now have the advanced ability to correct pitch in real time, even in non-linear ways. We can do curves and all kinds of stuff. Now this is an unusual special effect, and you might be asking, well, what do I need that for? I would never do that unless I'm doing maybe a tape slowdown or a record slowdown kind of effect. Well, there are cases in which you might want to use it. So I'm going to switch to a different musical example that I have set up. It is just a basic drum loop, and I will put a loop around it, loop it for you, and pull it up in the sequence editor. Now, my drum loop is broken up into two tracks. The blue track on the top is kick and snare. The orange track on the bottom is hi-hats. So before we start editing this, let's just play it back so you can hear what it sounds like. Oh, I forgot. I need to solo these two tracks. Here it comes. Okay, so this is a pretty basic EDM track that I was in the middle of working on. Let's look at just the hi-hats, the orange track at the bottom, and I'll switch to the pitch layer, and let's try some of our fancy curves. Actually, I've got to switch it to relative mode because there's no pitch in hi-hats, and let's draw some fancy curves into our hi-hats and see what they sound like now. Well, they sound pretty much the same. There's a reason for that. They're hi-hats, and hi-hats don't have formants. Remember how I was telling you, formants are unique to sustained and acoustic sounds like vocals. There's none of that in a percussive hi-hat. So let's switch the hi-hats into standard pitch shift mode, and now have a listen to this. So now you can see I've created something much more interesting out of my more basic hi-hat track. I could even do the same thing in my kick and snare track. Let's say I wanted to pitch the snare in some crazy places, so that maybe every time I do that, the snare is playing at a different pitch. I'm just drawing some at random. Let's see what this sounds like. Oh, and I've got to switch this also to standard pitch shifting. So I'm able to create a large amount of interesting variety in my track. A little pro tip, if you are into EDM, this is where it's at. Because many people outside EDM might think, oh, that's just someone hitting a drum machine or playing a synth, and there's the track. But actually, good EDM is all about the details, because the ear easily gets used to something that it hears repetitively. If I were to play the original track with pitch bypass, after 2 go-arounds, your ear would say, okay, that's just a 2 or 4 measure drum loop being looped incessantly. You start getting into pitch, time, and effects in this way, and suddenly what was boring and routine suddenly becomes much more interesting. So this is a very interesting technique with particular application to electronic dance music, as well as others. So let me change topics now off the pitch stuff and look at time. I'm going to solo just the drum, the kick and snare for a little bit, and you may or may not know that DP has long had the ability, you put your cursor in the upper right or the upper left-hand corner of any soundbite, and you can stretch it in real time. They could go as long as or as short as you want it to go. So let's have a listen to this. This is using the new time stretch engine that is built into the next version of DP. And I could go further if I wanted. This would be pretty extreme. Give it a second to recalculate that. Now it's hard to think of a time where you would have to stretch it that drastically, but it's nice to know that now it's possible. You could also go in the other direction like this. Give that a second to recalculate. Let me undo it and try it again. There we go. So it is doing a very high quality pitch stretching. Now DP is a very smart program. It will always, if you were to do multiple pitch stretches as I just did, it will always refer to the original soundbite when doing it. So you never have to worry about DP degrading through repeated time stretching. It won't do that. It will go back to the original and it will time stretch that for you to give you the highest possible quality results. So this is time stretching. And by the way, I've been grabbing it willy-nilly and just time stretching it to random durations. But DP also has the ability to time stretch to precise BPMs. So if you wrote a song at X BPM and then you deliver it to the client and he says, I like it, but it's too slow, I need to know Y BPM. DP also has functions for stretching it very accurately to specific BPMs. So advanced time stretching now built into the core of DP. There's one final example I would love to show you, and that is a completely different track. It is like a country rock track. And let me play its original version for you, and then I'll show you what I can do with it. Now let's just say, for example, that I deliver that to the client, but the client says, you know what, I love it, but our commercial is 2 or 3 seconds shorter. I need that to finish sooner. Well, there's a lot of things you can do. I'm going to make a snip using the scissors tool again, the C key, right on that last downbeat, which is approximately here, and I will simply grab the end of that soundbite and stretch it to be shorter. Let's have a listen to what this sounds like. You can hear that died off much, much faster. If I needed it shorter still, I could lop off a bit of the end of that, put a fade on it, make it even shorter. That's super short. And we could also go in the opposite direction. If we get our full soundbite back, time stretch it out to the end. So to summarize, we are getting extremely high quality pitch and time stretching. And so this is a look at where DP will be going in the future. I know the million-dollar question is, when can we get our hands on this? Motu is not announcing a release date here at NAMM, but I'm assured that this, along with some other tricks they have up their sleeve, will be in our hands very soon. So that is a look at the past, the present, and now the future of DP. I hope you've enjoyed it. I wish you a very happy NAMM. Thank you for attending, and have a wonderful and fruitful convention. Thanks, everybody.